Welcome to this short video tutorial. This is all about the methods in context. Okay, now the methods in context, it's essential for all AQA sociology students to be really familiarised with this. It is on both exam papers. If your students are sitting the AS paper, it is the last question, which is question number 6, and if your students are on the full A-level paper, it is question number 5. Okay, now for ease, it is worded exactly the same on both papers, and they are in exactly the same format. Okay, so here's an example of the one that we're going to go through. It will always ask you to use the item. And it will give you an item, and it will give you a little bit of context. It will give you a little bit about the method as well. Okay, so remember the items there to give you clues. Then the wording of the exam question itself, so that's just down here. Apply material from item B. I would expect students at some point to say, according to the item, duh. Okay. They might really want it to be explicit. They've not yet, but they might really want to see a quote or whatever. And your knowledge of research methods. That's just implying that they're expecting you to know the method. In this case, it's group interviews, and knowing the practical, ethical, theoretical considerations of that method. Okay, a good student will know that. And it's asking you to evaluate the strengths and weaknesses of this interviews, investigating the causes of educational underachievement amongst boys. Okay, and so they're expecting a certain level of application here. Okay, so to make it a little bit easy for you to see what I'm doing, I've colour coded it. So where this student is just talking about the method only, I'm going to highlight it in green. Where they start to talk about the context of school, which in my opinion is where students can pick up easy marks if they do it right. And this is the harder bit, is where they've got to think about the method, apply it to the context, and then link it back to the question. Okay, so let's go through this answer, the student's answer. So this is the first paragraph, a little bit of an introduction. I encourage my students to give a bit of an overview about what the method is. It gets some of that in the old style paper level 1 out of the way. It's just basic knowledge about what the method is. Okay, so in this case, this student has given quite a little bit of knowledge because she's identified that this is a focus group. Sorry about this, guys. I just want to get to my highlighter. Okay, so she's identified it's a focus group, structured or unstructured. Okay, open-ended. So these are all ticks for me. You know, this student is pretty good. Nice opening paragraph. Lots of keywords. And it gets that bit of theory out the way as well. Okay, so a nice opening paragraph, and that might be really good practice to get your students to do that. In terms of the practical issues, I got my students to make sure that they outline practical, ethical, theoretical. Okay, so this student here is going through the practical issues first. Nice opening there, lots of opinions in one sitting, lots of outlooks why boys don't achieve highly, and I'm going to keep that green because that's just true of any context, whoever you're talking to. Okay, so there's no real application there. She's mentioned time consuming and needing social skills to build a rapport. Okay, so far lots of green, and now she's going to start to talk about it might be hard to access the research group as a school. Children are a vulnerable group, and that means a CRB check is required. Okay, so I am going to change colour here. So let's go for that colour. So we're going into a little bit of detail. So students are a vulnerable group, meaning a CRB check will be required. Consent from the parents and the head teacher. So this is all in the school context, not applied to boys under achievement, but getting into context, and that is good. Okay, Following on, the gatekeeper might refuse access into underachieving boys because it will not look good to parents. Okay, now I'm going to keep that as level 2 or this school context. Even though they're talking about underachieving boys, they're not really making it explicit about the issue of the focus group. Okay, so because they've not linked it back to the method in particular, I'm going to keep it at level 2. And she's got some even more level 2s here, or in school context. Refusing access, depending on the time of the year, it'll disrupt learning and cause students to fail. No real link to boys and achievement there, but a lot of context. A group interview might not be beneficial to studying external factors linking in because ethnic minorities may have a language barrier, black parents speaking a restricted code might not understand the elaborate speech code, or working class parents may not leave work. So now she's talking about some of the reasons why boys are underachieving, and she's actually linking it in to say, well, these reasons why they're underachieving is the same reasons why they might not take part in a group interview. Okay, so here I feel that she is getting into a little bit of context. Okay, so let's give it a different colour. All right, so you know, she's done pretty well there because she's really thinking about these boys in particular and some of the features about these boys and why they might be problematic to use. Okay, so to me she's hinting towards that that higher context. Okay, so then she goes back to the method only. Okay, so she's got ethical issues, beneficial, you've got informed consent, which is good, vulnerable groups, less stressful. Okay, again, this is still just method only, which allow a lot of research, and again that's just superficial application to boys. There's no real application there. It could apply to any group. Okay, here again she's talking about some people, peer pressure, and that'll lower the validity. Okay, and again it's just about the method, so there's no real application. Now she's going into context a little bit. Okay, so now she's saying, especially younger pupils may feel comfortable in a group interview. Okay, so not particularly about boys, but we are talking about how they might open up because of the context or the group that we're studying. Here, a downside of this, however, the pupils may tell the researcher things that might break school rules, get them into trouble. And again, it's not really about boys, but it's about the school context. Okay, and it gives guilty knowledge for the researcher. And it may not be a good idea to use group interviews to investigate underachievement of boys, as questions surrounding this topic may be sensitive if it's got something to do with. Okay, she's hinting there, that context. Okay, I'm toying with the idea of giving a level all the way up to the top context because she's not really made it clear about the focus group part. Okay, so I'm going to keep that the same colour. Okay, but she's nearly there. You can see this student is really trying hard to get right up into the context, and she's nudging into it there. Okay, following on with the good structure that she's got, so this time she is talking about the theoretical issues. So gaining insight, it's qualitative data which interpreted like, she's got a little bit of an error here. She talks about reliability, and she was doing so well, that it's more validity. Okay, but I'm going to highlight that, but some of the points are repeated. But then she brings in the positivist. There's no fit questions, hard to replicate. Okay, so I think that was a little bit of an error because she obviously understands this concept here. It's hard to generalise, as results from working class schools will vary immensely from middle class schools, different classes. Middle class boys are pro school more likely to volunteer. She's really getting a little bit about that. Okay, so she is getting into context there. Okay, but not really about the focus group part. Okay, working class boys, due to larger subcultures, might dominate. So she's hinting that it's a focus group or it's a group interview here. So I quite like that little bit. I'm going to make that purple. Bully middle class boys for their pro school answers, encourage them to lie, causing social desirability. So she does get into context there. That's really, really good. And then she talks about, and she's hinting at, if you were researching teachers blaming boys for their own underachievement, that it's diverting their attention away from them. So she's hinting at it there, but she doesn't really make it clear that it is about focus groups. Okay, so I'm going to make that red. Okay, so overall, this essay believes that group interviews are not the best way. So she's come to a reasoned conclusion why that boys achieve lower than girls, because there's too many issues. Okay, and she's highlighted that there are lots of issues. So again, that is in context there. Okay, so as you can see, there's a little bit of structure going on. I've deviated from them colours, sorry, but you can see there's a lot of structure going on. That she starts off green, she goes into the school context, and then she tries to make it into the boys and achievement context, and she does the same again. It's just that shame that second paragraph doesn't really link it back to focus groups, but she does it again, and then she finishes off there. Okay, so nicely structured. It might be something that you might want to replicate. If we just have a look at the mark scheme for this question, okay, so let's just see what we could actually tick off that she does. Okay, personally I think she's in between the two, between 13 to 16 and 17 to 20, because if we look at the 13 to 16 band, she's got all that application to general. She's got a bit of undeveloped underachievement of boys, but she's got a lot of the group context, and that's why I think she's nudging into here as well, because she's got about boys, she's mentioned a peer group, she talks a little bit about parents and teachers, hinting into class and ethnicity. Okay, she doesn't really do that, but she does hint it about the effect of the school image, and vulnerability of participants. So that makes me think that she's probably about a 17 out of 20. Okay, because she does actually get quite a lot into it, and the answer does look quite sophisticated as well. And remember, we're asking students to be writing a highly applied answer in a 30-minute time frame. Okay, so I think this student will probably get about 17, it just nudging it into the top band, because of the application that she's got. Okay, so hopefully that will just help you structure your answer for a 20 mark methods in context. Clear intro, and then following it into practical, ethical, theoretical, starting off with the method, apply it to schools, apply it to the context in the question. Okay, and come to a reasoned conclusion. I hope this helps. Thank you for listening. Goodbye.